On December 12th, 1990, Amtrak train number 66, the Night Owl, departed Union Station in Washington, D.C. at 10:30 p.m. on December 11th, 1990. The Night Owl was Amtrak's overnight service on the Northeast Corridor and was scheduled to arrive at Boston South Station at 8:35 a.m. that morning. At the time, the electrification ended in New Haven, Connecticut, so two EMD F40PH diesel locomotives, which were 272 and 366, were assigned to pull the Night Owl from New Haven to Boston. Behind the two locomotives were a material handling car, a baggage car, 3 coaches, a dining car, 2 sleeping cars, another baggage car, and another material handling car. As the train approached Back Bay, a scheduled stop, there were 7 crew members and 190 passengers on board. Meanwhile, MBTA train number 906 was regularly scheduled, the commuter train on the Stoughton line, inbounded from Stoughton to South Station. The train consisted of an EMD F40PH-2C locomotive, number 1073, similar to the Amtrak locomotives, 6 passenger coaches, and a control car. The train operated in push mode, meaning that the locomotive was on the rear of the train and that the locomotive engineer controlled operations from the control car in the front. There were 5 crew members and 900 passengers on board this train. The western approach to Back Bay is a triple-track tunnel with tracks number 3, 1, and 2. The MBTA train was on track 1, and the Night Owl was on track 2. These 2 tracks are immediately adjacent with no barrier between them, but the maximum speed for these trains was 30 miles per hour. But then, there was something weird. This Amtrak locomotive was going 76 miles per hour, aka 272. And then, at 8:23 a.m., trouble happens. The Amtrak locomotives left the tracks and struck the MBTA locomotives on the adjacent track. As the collision occurred in downtown Boston, medical service was on the scene almost immediately. Amazingly, despite all of the wreck happening, 0 people were killed during this wreck. The collision destroyed all 3 locomotives, 5 Amtrak cars, and 1 MBTA coach. In addition, 453 people were injured. The tunnel suffered structural damage to its support columns. Immediately above the tunnel had to be resurfaced during the collision. The 2 trains jackknifed and created a hole in the street. Back Bay was closed for 6 days after the accident. The total damage was estimated to be $14 million, $9 million in damage to infrastructure and rolling stock, and a further $5 million in cleanup costs. But how can this all start from the beginning? What caused such a terrible wreck to happen? The NTSB focused on the operation of the Night Owl. The 2 crewmen had been in the cab, Willis E. Copeland, the engineer, and Richard Ambronson, an appearance engineer. Ambronson was operating the locomotive under Copeland's supervision for the entire trip. Copeland had worked in the railroad industry since 1957 and as an engineer since 1969, as a road foreman for Amtrak in 1979. He ignored several signals and almost reached an open drawbridge at Pelham Bay. Only an automatic derailleur prevented a more serious accident. Amtrak fired Copeland over the incident, but he was rehired in 1983. In March 1990, the Metro-North Railroad banned Copeland from its territory for life. After twice running through temporary stop signals set up to protect railroad employees working on adjacent tracks, Ambronson had joined Amtrak as a ticket clerk in 1973. and entered the engineer training program in early 1990. He made 2 round trips over the territory as part of his training program. Copeland was personally acquainted with Amberson but had other appearance engineers. The review of the train event recorder showed that the night owl had exceeded the maximum authorized speed of 100 miles per hour, apparently to make up for lost time between New Haven and Boston. Copeland claimed that he instructed Amberson to begin braking at Ruggles Station, approximately 1 mile from Back Bay. That train failed to slow normally upon the brake application, and that emergency braking was applied before the train entered the tunnel. Data from the recorder did not substantiate this braking until shortly before the train entered the tunnel. Emergency braking, a mere 480 feet, less than an hour 4 seconds of travel time, before reaching the point of the derailment. In the view of the NTSB, even if the night owl had begun braking at that point, it would have still been going too fast. It reached the curve. Any speed over 59 miles per hour would have led to derailment and subsequent collision. When entered the Back Bay Tunnel, the night owl was still traveling at 103 miles per hour and slowed to only 76 miles per hour before the recorder ceased to function. In the end, the NTSB pointed the blame squarely at the Amtrak crew, and both crew members of the Amtrak train were fired. In the end, all 3 locomotives were deemed a total loss and scrapped. It's been 33 years since this wreck had happened, and it is one of the most deadliest Amtrak collisions of all time. Thank goodness nobody had died during this wreck.